This is UXpress, a shot of user experience. Today, we talk remote facilitation with Douglas Ferguson, President and Master Facilitator at Voltage Control. Don't forget to check out our longer conversation on theindustryofux.com. Most of us are working from home and all our meetings are done online. So before we could turn around, talk to our peers, talk to the folks that were sitting around, near our desks, have these little interactions and push projects forward that way, even having, meaningful collisions. But all of that has gone away right now. Most of it, not all of it. And now I find myself, which I think that most of us find ourselves having to schedule meetings to replace these meaningful collisions. And facilitation becomes even more part of our day. So what are changes that we need to make in our facilitation skill set when doing it remotely versus in person?
Yeah, it's interesting. There's a few things going on, right? There's the tools, and when we think about the tools, we need to make sure that we aren't too focused on the tools. I see people get really hung up on, what tools do I need to use, and they kind of miss the mark on designing a great experience. So there's so many people that are missing the fundamentals, that the remote environment is just exacerbating the problem. Because I would argue that in-person meetings are just as problematic, but they were familiar. So the anti-patterns and the bad behaviors and the lack of providing an amazing experience were accepted because they were norms. There were things that we had been doing our entire career that we saw other people doing. No one frowned upon it. No one seemed frustrated because it was familiar, and we were just frankly used to it. We were resigned to these bad experiences. Now that we've been thrust in these different environments, and granted, there's some extra challenges for sure, like network latency and the tools and the experience of seeing someone on a little video square versus being in the same room, breathing the same air as them. But I think rather than just trying to jam technology practices on top of bad design is not the solution. So if I bring it back to UX, right? Let's say that we're looking at our website and it's a really poor experience. So it takes users too long to complete a task. Going to the tech team and saying we need to make the pages render faster to speed up that process is the wrong answer. That's a technical solution to a poorly designed user problem, right? And I think we need to first think about first order facilitation principles and really designing great experiences for people. And then the digital space just becomes very, I would say, tactical kinds of things, right? These are rote kinds of things that just you can do to just have better meetings. And of course, things like I always talk about, having a really solid purpose and making sure it's clear. You talked about the serendipity of creating these moments of interaction. And so, look, if the whole point is so that we can have some connection, let's honor that purpose and be really clear about it. Let's not disguise it as talking about, the whatever project, because if talking about the whatever project over and over and over again is going to drive us mad and we're going to get frustrated and feel like it was a waste of time, well, that's no good. But what if we said, we need to just get together and hang out, whether it's a happy hour or whatever creative way we want to brand it or talk about it. Just put it on the calendar and honor the fact that we want to connect, we want to hang out, and that's important for the team, the camaraderie. And I think that's totally fine. And even thinking about how we include everyone, if we weren't intentional about that in the room, that was bad to begin with. But it's even more apparent and even more frustrating when people are, stuck at home and, they're in the Zoom call and they're feeling like they're not included and they're like, why am I even here? Even thinking about being intentional about the flow and how you make decisions and all the stuff I talked about, just concentrate on those things first. And then of course, if you got a group that's larger than 5 people, even thinking about breakout rooms, letting people talk in pairs. We talked about the one pager from Amazon. You don't have to have a one pager to get that same juice. As long as you have solo time for people to wrap their heads around the problem. You can also a great technique that it's good for remote or in person is starting off with intention, asking people, why are we here? And that's a great thing to think about when you just from a way of assessing if you communicated your purpose clearly. Because if they look at you with blank stares, or they start saying things that you're like, whoa, hold on. So it gives you a chance to correct your purpose. And if you're detecting that, then you got to think about like, why wasn't that clear up front, and how can I fix that next time? Even asking people, I want to remind people that there's a reason that these techniques got popularized with the UX movement. And it's not, I would say facilitation is not limited to UX, because we've got the art of gathering, we've got liberating structures, even scrum masters are becoming more and more asked to facilitate. When you look at agencies like chief strategist type roles, and architecture firms will have charrettes, and people have had these group collaboration, these co-creation sessions for years across all different kinds of disciplines, and it's just becoming more and more popular because it is a great way to work, especially when we're in a complex domain, which is where we often find ourselves these days. And so I think what we're seeing is a cosmic shift in the way people work and the way people come together, and that's why we're getting asked more and more to do this type of work. And as a UXer, the reason that it's very prominent in that role is because if you're going to design a good experience, you need to understand the needs of the people engaging with that experience. So it is service design. It is UX work to design a good meeting. And of course, there's, best practices and things, but often, we're going to be better served for our meeting culture if we learn how people are showing up, what they appreciate, what they don't, and then design to fix those problems. And don't go fixing problems that don't exist. You would never go into your product and add a feature just because you had a whim that it was a problem, or that like you think it would be cool to add it. No, you're fixing problems or giving people superpowers are going to make them excel beyond their expectations. And that's what we're trying to do in meetings too. So that's the thing. Like, if you get clear on your purpose, if you think about making sure to include everyone and how you do that, whether it's breakout rooms or even just having people work in solo groups and then work together, throwing them into a collaborative tool like Mural so that everyone can silently record and cluster, even sharing your screen so they can see the live scribing of what's happening. So like the words that are getting said are materializing in front of them. Very, very powerful. But these are things we did in person as well. Right. And I think a lot of these techniques are not that hard to replicate. We gotta just think about what we want to do, and then think about how to make them show up in the virtual space. And the last thing I'll say is feedback. At the end of the meeting, I love to design in feedback and commitments. So who's going to do what? What are they committing to? Well, given their current resources, how can they move this forward? And if you're doing the work in the meeting and using prototypes and really, really collaborating, that should already be very clear, because people have been leaning into the meeting and making contributions and adding stuff. Whether you're using, I love Figma. That's a really great way to design and create in a meeting together, or Google Docs or Google Slides, whatever you're building. Find a distributed collaboration tool that allows you to create a rough draft or an initial version of that thing, and then work on it together in the meeting. And then those commitments become really clear because people are already invested. They've already been like building on it and adding to it. And those are the important things. And if you do those things, or you try to do them, and the digital stuff gets in the way, then you got a very tactical, very clear problem to solve. And anyone can figure that stuff out. And so start with the fundamentals, of designing good meetings. And then when you run into remote technical roadblocks, just like go solve it. Go hit up our facilitation community. There's tons of people that have solutions to all those little tactical problems.
This was You Express, a shot of user experience, with Douglas Ferguson, Master Facilitator and President at Voltage Control. Check out our longer conversation on theindustryofux.com. Thank you for listening and have a great day.